All right, it's 5 after, so we'll go ahead and get started. And if anybody jumps on in the next few minutes, we can catch them up toward the end of the meeting. So good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for a kickoff meeting for upcoming improvements at Tryon Hills Park. My name is Bert Lynn. I'm the Capital Planning Division Director for Park and Recreation. Joining me tonight are some folks on my team, planners Darnica Waters, James Williams, Senior Planner Katie Lloyd. We're also joined by Greg Klimmer, who is the Division Director for Park Operations, and Jen Brooks, who is going to serve as Project Manager for this project. We are excited to start this project, bringing improvements to a park that needs some improvements. And ultimately, we want to ensure that Tryon Hills Park is a vital and loved place within the neighborhood. So tonight, we wanted to talk a little bit about our park equity strategy, provide some context on the park itself. And then after we go through some site features, we'll have some interactive polling and discussion on issues with the park now and additions to the park that we want to see in the future. And we'll talk a little bit through the schedule of the project. So we do ask you that you stay muted through the presentation. We will have time after several slides that will ask you to unmute, and we'll have some open dialogue. So you're muted when you see the red slash through the microphone there. You are welcome to share your video, but if you don't want to have your video on, that's absolutely fine. And we do ask that if you have any questions during the presentation that just kind of come to mind, then you can add those in the chat feature, and you can find that by clicking the chat button on the bottom of the screen there. So we'll test the chat feature out very quickly. If you would, please type your name and your favorite outdoor activity. And I'm going to do the same. All right. Get some walkers in the group. Going to the beach, I'm okay with that, absolutely. All right, all righty. So let's get moving. Last year, our Board of County Commissioners set aside $2 million as part of a broader equity initiative to use for reinvestment in park and recreation facilities. The funds that will be used to improve Tryon Hills Park are part of that overall funding. Over the past,
I'm good. You can go.
Oh, let me get them muted. Over the past almost 2 years now, we've been working on our new Park and Recreation Master Plan MEC Playbook. One component of that plan is to complete a full inventory and assessment of all the parks, greenways, nature preserves, recreation centers, and other department facilities. We knew going into the playbook that we had some parks that were in really good shape and other parks that need some improvements. And we wanted to understand and identify all the parks within the system that we felt need improvements. So as a result of this assessment, each park and recreation facility was ranked either good, acceptable, or poor. We plan to focus future investments into parks and recreation facilities that received a poor ranking. So we completed the inventory and assessment of over 250 Mecklenburg park and recreation facilities. This provides us with a snapshot of the current conditions for every facility. And it will be updated over time. And we'll use this as a tool for benchmarking progress and then prioritizing future investments as we move along. And so this process will help provide us with improved accountability by getting eyes on all of our facilities on a regular basis. So after the inventory and assessment was complete, the results were compiled and sorted in a summary sheet based on the park classification. And you can see here, these are the parks that we consider local walk-to parks or neighborhood parks. LC Coleman received a grade of D, or not, sorry, not LC Coleman. Tryon Hills Park received a grade of D. No, it was actually an F. And this grade made it a great candidate for significant investment now. So the park received this poor ranking for a number of reasons. Right when you kind of enter the park off of 30th, you're met with fencing all across, and it just doesn't seem like an inviting place to go. There's nowhere to sit within the park currently. The shelter is centrally located, which is great, but it is starting to show some age, and it's a good candidate for replacement. We do have great trees in the back half of the park, but there's few amenities there now, so it feels a little disconnected in that it's one part of the park and then there's another more active part of the park. So we recognize that the park holds great potential, and our goal is to bring that out with your help. We found that while a number of our larger community parks and regional parks have been well maintained, even some that are older, a lot of our smaller local or neighborhood parks are in poor condition. So Tryon Hills Park is one of 3 existing parks that received reinvestment funding last year. This year we received additional reinvestment funding, and we'll be improving an additional 8 parks, all of which are existing facilities now. We anticipate our next round of capital improvement plan projects will include further reinvestment in our existing parks. Very quickly and at a high level, we're meeting today, and we're going to do some pop-up events at the park itself to try to intercept some users there and get some feedback and input. We'll take the input that we receive, as well as that we receive through our website, and start to design 2 or 3 concepts for the park over the next couple of months that we will share back with you in early 2022. Input that we receive there will help inform the final park improvement plan. We'll share that plan in the schedule in the spring. And then we'll go through and finish our construction documents, get our permits, bid the project, and start construction next fall, and open the park and have a celebration in the spring of 2023. So let's begin the input portion of today's meeting. We're going to have a few new methods of receiving documentation or documenting your input. The first is a pop-up window. So you'll see a pop-up window show up, and we have a very simple question. Have you ever been to Tryon Hills Park? We just want to gauge. And this is more about, how many folks have or just getting used to this, rather than knowing. But you never know. You know, we may have some folks who have driven by the park but never stopped to go in the park. And that's true in this case. We've got some folks who have been to the park, but several who have not been to the park.
So as you can see in the results, the majority of the people on the call actually have not been to the park, but a couple have.
All right, so we will close that down, and I will pass the baton over to James Williams, who's going to take us on a tour of Tryon Hills Park.
Thanks, Bert. It's a 1.96 enclosed urban, if you will, linear park, and it has significant tree canopy, as Bert has mentioned, and it's at 220 West 30th Street. The land for the park was purchased through a 1978 park bond to provide additional recreation for children and older adults You had the Tryon Hills Elementary School, and you also had Dillahay, apartments there. And this was the city of Charlotte Park and Rec department at the time. There was just not, enough park area within the area for the children or the seniors. But at that time, it was no consensus within the organization that the parcel was a good park site. But it prevailed and it became a site. Land design, they were the landscape architects and engineers. They prepared construction drawings, and park operation and street maintenance. They did the original park construction, and that was in 1987. Relocation of the playground and site amenities due to vandalism happened in 2019, and that's with the county Park and Rec. The park today has a primary entrance, as Bert said, it's off 30th Street. As you can see from the aerial, and some of the site amenities, of course, includes the shelter and the playground area. The secondary entrance is off West 31st Street, and significant change in the park context to the west is happening today, and we feel like it's going to be a catalyst for this project, and that's the redevelopment of the Dillahay apartments by Livian, which is formerly the Charlotte Housing Authority. Right now it was about 44 units, I think, and ultimately it will be a 4-story and 144 affordable family units. So you can see that's going to be quite an impact, and it's also going to put a stronger edge to our property and enclose it even more so. Definitely, we're very interested in stakeholder involvement continually with the Housing Authority or in Libyan. The next graphic, it just shows the use areas. This is sort of recent where we pushed the play area and also the basketball court and everything to the perimeter. The shelter was still in the middle in the main portion of the site. As Bert has mentioned again, you can see the tree canopy, and we had a path that went from 30th Street to 31st Street, which gave good pedestrian access. But at one time, the playground and everything was closer in proximity under the tree line near the shelter. Again, these are some pictures. We're gonna take you through the site. This is the primary entrance, of course, and you can see the basketball courts. And if you see beyond the basketball courts, you can see the grading that's happening now to the new development for Dillahay. Again, this is an interior shot looking back towards 30th Street. You can see the basketball court, and you can also see some of the layer of fencing that Bert had mentioned, the playground area. In the context of the other apartments across the street. Oh, the Dillahay, in fact, the apartments across the street are also subject to go down and be redeveloped. And I think the Livian at this point is now relocating residents out of there. Again, this is the fencing, which you can see, which gives a harsh edge to the site, unwelcome to some point. You can also see the shelter that Bert had mentioned in the back, which definitely could be in need for some updates. We do things like collier wraps and do some structural things to improve that shelter, or we may go with a new prototype shelter, but it needs something. It's no punch. There's no attenuation as you look into the site. Again, here's the playground and another view of the shelter. You can see the tree canopy, which is very evident and nice, provides nice shade. The playgrounds, we had 2 playgrounds here, one to the perimeter and then the other to 30th Street. Again, this is looking from 31st Street as you walk up under the canopy. You can see the playground area again. You can also note that we have some limbs, tree limbs that has fallen. Park operations is in the process of doing some selective clearing. Some of the trees are diseased and some of them are damaged. So we are definitely trying to get that clean, but the area is really nice as you walk through that back area. So out of this process, hopefully we can come up with some ways to activate that area even more. And so that's one of the reasons we're here to listen tonight, to see what your thoughts are. Again, this just shows that tree canopy, again, going through the park and the sidewalk that extends from 31st to 30th.
All right, with that, we'll get back to some of the polls and the interactive questions where we have a chance to listen to you. So I'm gonna put this poll in. It's similar to the last one, and of the couple folks that have been to the park, we wanted to know, how often do you visit Tryon Hills Park? And we're asking that just to get an idea of how the park is used today. We would hope that after we made some improvements, your answer may change and you might go more often. But this is just to get a baseline for how it's used today. So you can answer this poll question, and then we'll move into some open-ended questions that where you can unmute and talk or type into the chat. I'll also say that we have additional questions on our public input site where you went to register, and I'll drop that link into the chat. And you can go there and you can provide more feedback, or if anyone wanted to attend tonight and has missed it, they can go to this site and watch the video recording of this meeting. Okay. So we got a couple people that responded, and I'm going to share back the results of the people that responded to never go to the park, and then others probably go more like yearly, so not very often. I'm going to stop sharing that, and then we'll move on to the next question. And so this question is also on the public input site, but this is where we wanted to give you an opportunity just to get a conversation started. So if you could add one thing to Tryon Hills Park, what would you add? And we're going to type in what you say onto the screen so other people can respond to that as well. So we'll open this up if you want to. There's not a ton of us on the call, so you could probably just unmute and start talking, or if you prefer to type in the chat, that's fine as well.
Hi, this is Melissa. It needs some color. It looks kind of drab. So I think it needs some color, and seating would be a great option to add there. So people could go and actually sit down, whether the kids are playing, and they can watch.
Definitely. Anybody else?
This is Jeff. I would second on that seating. Also, if there's any possibility, I know you have the green space there, if there's any possibility of, I mean, you have the tree canopy there, but there any possibility for any, I don't know, green space or grassy area? I know sometimes people like to have a space like that in the park. If not to, toss a Frisbee or a ball, or, or just to sit there, so.
Thanks, Jeff. Anybody else?
I would also say with the new development that's happening with the old Delahaye courts, that there's probably going to need to have some something for some dogs. What do you call those little dog stations, doggy, whatever.
Stations.
Yep, there you go. Yep, something that there. And I don't know, I've been to some other neighborhood parks, and they actually have like little grills and things that people can use as well. So I don't know what size the park has to be. That could be something that would be beneficial. Is there anything, I saw the shelter, is there anything under the shelter? Are there picnic tables under the shelter, or is it just a shelter? There's just an open space.
Currently, it's just open. There aren't any tables under there right now.
Okay, so some picnic tables would be good. Were there some there at some point and they took them out?
I think there were, and
Yes.
I think they were damaged, so they had to be removed. But we can put something back that's a little more sturdy.
Okay.
both from that standpoint and from a seating standpoint, or you do integral seating. You can do low seat walls and things like that, that people can sit on or jump onto and off of. That's what I used to do, and that's what my kids did when they were younger.
Yeah. And I also would say, of course, some trash receptacles, but I'm sure that's a given once you redo the park that you'll have that. So.
Anyone else? And feel free to add more than one thing. I think that's fine. Like anything that comes to mind is totally fine to share.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing that we discussed a little bit earlier today, and a couple of months ago after our site visit, was just how it addresses the street. And I would open that up to both sides, because I think there's probably going to be a bit more traffic back on 31st once the Enlivian site next door gets redeveloped. But the way that the park addresses the street and your opportunity to enter, making it so it feels inviting, and then maybe providing a bit more separation from the road, particularly on 30th Street. The plans that we've seen for the new Enlivian development have, I think, an 8-foot wide planting strip, and then the sidewalk is back behind that. And so that would be an approach that we would probably want to extend kind of into the park, and then think about where our users are going to come from. If they're coming from next door or across the street, making sure that we understand where safe places to cross the street are, and have the entrance into the park line up with that. It seems, like common sense, but you'd be surprised at how many times we run into issues where those things don't always line up. So we'll make sure that we reach out both to Enlivian and CDOT, so that we understand where those safe places to cross and enter are going to be.
Can you tell me from the back side of the park? Until I went to the park several years ago, I never realized that there was an actual road over on the other side that you could use to enter the park, but it looks like there's some businesses or manufacturing, things like that on the other side of the park. Is there fencing along there as well? So I guess that's 31st Street. Let me see.
It's 31st.
Yeah.
There's no fencing back there. It's pretty open, and it is a little bit less treed in that area, so there's some more grass area. But I think we could probably selectively clear a couple of trees, whether they're unhealthy or a little bit pesky, like sweet gums. They always drop sweet gum balls on the trails and sidewalks. I believe the site plan for Enlivian shows an entrance coming in off of here, and then potentially making this connection back to, I think it's Poplar that's back here.
Yeah.
So it's a dead end now, and there's no destination at the end.
Okay.
So CDOT has seen a lot of dumping back here, construction materials and stuff like that they go back and check on and clean up. So I think it's going to help activate the backside of the park a little bit more.
Okay.
And help out in just enlivening, both sides.
Okay, that's good. Because my concern, 30th Street there's a lot of traffic that goes up and down that street, so people crossing the street to get to the park will always be a concern. So somehow.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think the reason that we've got the fencing up there is twofold. One, at the basketball goal, it's to keep the ball from going into the street.
Right.
And at the playground, anytime that we're close to a road or a parking area or something like that, we want to create a hard, safe edge there so we don't have kids kind of darting in and out. But maybe what we do is we shift some of those uses a little bit deeper in the park, so that rather than needing a fence there to create that separation, we've got space in between the road and then where those amenities are located.
Okay.
No, Greg might not want to hear that because it's a pretty new playground, but if I promise him a new one, he might be okay.
You mentioned the street in the back, and I know that they had talked about opening up the street in the back. Is the main entrance for the new building going to be back there for the Dillahay Courts, the new building that they're building?
I'm not sure that it's the main entrance. I think they have multiple. I think they can access off of 31st
Okay.
and 30th. I'm not sure which would be considered the main entrance though.
Okay.
But it is Jeff, it is a U-shaped building that sort of confronts the street.
Okay.
Or you can go
Yeah,
to
I
the
see
next
the way
slide.
that they're doing the site. I think the entrance, the old entrance that was the front is not going to be the entrance. Maybe they're going to move the one on 30th, but it looks like that's not going to be an entrance anymore. So
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think there's a meeting tomorrow that we're going to attend that is hosted by Enlivian. I think it's a listening session, and so that's something that we may be able to pass on to that project team and get some clarity there. We definitely want to understand kind of, where our traffic's going to come to and from, and make sure that we create a great place or a safe place for folks to enter.
So with this, we just wanted to open up to any additional questions or any additional comments that you may have. Sounds like we know we have more coordination to do with the adjacent development, and then of course with the streets on either side, because that can have a big impact on how the park functions and feels. Anything else about the park itself? Anything you've observed out there? Even if it's a wild idea, just something you think would be neat out there.
We did at one point, just bringing this out, we had, maybe if you had a path that teach the children how to ride on the walk, or make that walkway one of those type areas where you could do that by widening it. And that's just another thought that came up on how to engage that backside.
James, I think you're talking about a loop trail that would be kind of a wider trail.
Yeah.
That you could ride, walk, jog, whatever around that.
That sounds like a good idea.
I'll ask a quick question or another question. The timing of our project is a little unfortunate. I think it would have been nice if we were a couple years down the road once the Enlivian site is done, or if they were, a few years ahead of us and we had kind of that user group to talk to. Are there any other groups in the area that it would make sense for us to reach out to and have a discussion with for some additional input and insight that you guys are aware of?
I think right in that general vicinity, maybe with a block or two, there is a daycare center. It's on the corner, and I'm not quite sure. Jeff, you're probably more familiar with that location for their daycare center. So I don't know if you've reached out potentially to that daycare center. It seems to be like a pretty big one. It's a that I've seen, and I can't remember the name of it.
It's Catalina at Norris, and I can't think of the name of it right now either, but it's, yeah, where 30th end and Norris begins, and Catalina, there's a daycare there.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely stop by and have a conversation.
And perhaps the store that's across the street from the park. And I guess the business that's on the other side of the park. That's I think they do cabinet making or something over there.
They might want to use it to enjoy a lunch or something across the street.
Maybe. Well, they fenced in their parking lot within the last year or so. So that adds to the fencing look as well.
I think it's called Brighter
And the
Minds
fence
Academy.
comes right up to the sidewalk. I'm not sure. I don't recognize that name, sorry.
Sorry, I was jotting down some notes. So Katie mentioned the public input website. There's a few more questions there. From an overall program, this is what we had planned for this evening. We just wanted to have more of a conversation, and are looking forward to when we can actually sit down, in a room all together safely and have that conversation. Our group has been working remotely for most of the last 18, 20 months. We have been starting to move into the office, and then we're starting to do more and more kind of in-person events. So my hope is that when we get back together in early next year, we're able to do that kind of within the park, and then within a room somewhere nearby where you can see your faces.
I think related to that too, Bert, we are planning to be in the park some over the next month or few months. And if you guys happen to know or have noticed a time when you see more people in the park, that would be good information for us, just so that we can intercept some feedback from park users, whether that's weekdays, Saturday afternoons, or if you just happen to have noticed. Let us know.
Will do.
So-
I think sometimes on Saturday or in the or after school, I see kids there at the basketball court sometimes, especially in the warmer weather. And that is Brighter Minds Academy 2. I pulled it up on Google Maps, and when I go down, that's what it says. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It may be on the corner of West 30th and Catalina. Well, right there at Catalina where 30th ends and Norris begins. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right. So just a quick reminder, over the next couple of months, we'll continue receiving input and start to work on some concepts to share early next year, finalizing those concepts in the spring, beginning construction in late summer, early fall next year, and then having the park open in the spring of 23. If all of you signed up for the meeting tonight through the website, so we will send out reminders once we get dates finalized for those upcoming meetings. And then we will share some updates along as well. James mentioned some tree work that's going to occur within the park soon. We'll be doing a site survey out there probably toward the end of November, early December. So we have up-to-date base information for the site, and we'll use that kind of moving forward. And then we'll have our consultant team on board either in December or January to begin working with us on the project. So with that, thank you all for attending. Quick reminder of the public input website there, and then our contact information, myself, Katie, James, and Darnika. Please feel free to reach out if you have any ideas that come to mind. If you talk to a friend and they had an idea come to mind, we are always around and ready to have more conversation. So thank you all. Enjoying the evening, and we hope to see you very soon.
Yeah, thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Have a good
Good night.
evening. Bye.